let's talk about my preferences, what gets my juices flowing, what makes me tick. What I'm looking for and what I really like is more of a balanced sound signature with a slight bass boost. I like my bass, but I like my bass tight, I like it fast, I like it to hit hard and have some slam. I do not like that extra big bass shelf boost that's sub-bass driven, where the lower bass is scooped out. I think it's really important to have that information down there to make instrumental like piano, guitar, cello sound correct. But also I like the bass fast enough, speedy enough to make kick drums sound great. When it comes to the rest of the mids, I prefer an overall, maybe slightly warm tilt. I'm not a big fan of overly analytical, too dry a tuning. I'd rather have something a bit more musical. When we start to climb up into the ear gain region, make that pinna gain not so steep, but give some energy to some body into the mids. Again, making vocals sound correct, making instrumentals sound correct. I'm a big fan of timbre and tonality when it comes to instrumental as well. It has to sound correct to my ears. That 5K area also, I'm a bit sensitive to it. If there's too much information up there, I get fatigue, I get ringing in my ears, and it just doesn't let me play it longer and, more importantly, louder, because I do like my tunes louder. When it comes to the rest of the frequencies up top, I do like an extended treble, but not a peak above the pinna rise. Keep it extended, keep it detailed, but don't put too much energy up there for treble sensitive people like myself. It's got to have enough information to make great stage, to give instrument placement, to make strings sound good, female vocals that aren't too thick. That's what really gets me going, and that's what I'm looking for sound preference wise.
Still remember how you sound and the way you calm me down when we went behind the bar, taking what we thought was ours. I was wasted, it was late, but I knew I met my fate. You were all I've waited for, guess I can wait a little more. Yeah, yeah, it was just one of those nights when it's better than in all the movies, perfectly aligned. I fell into you and you into me. Just one of those nights when you wake up after thinking it's a dream. Now it's just a memory. I've been waiting for your call ever since that summer, waiting for your call. No, you know my number, waiting for your call. Winter, summer, spring, or fall, I'll be waiting for your call. I'll be waiting for your call. Didn't ask you what's your name, and the fun we had is to blame. There was just no time for small talk. I was busy in your arms, love, frustrated to this day. You're the one that got away, and you took my heart with you. Now I don't know what to do. Yeah, it was just one of those nights when it's better than in all the movies, perfectly aligned. I fell into you and you into me. Just one of those nights when you wake up after thinking it's a dream. Now it's just a memory. I've been waiting for your call ever since that summer, waiting for
today's video is going to be on the new SOFTEARS Volume S. I like it a lot. Let's just talk about getting into this intro of the video. It is nicely presented, nicely accessorized. In the box, you get your IMs. But more importantly, let's see what else you get. There's a little, as you can see, oops, or not. Way to go. Shit the bed on this one, didn't I? Oh man, come on. Anyway, there's a little potentiometer right there. Potentiometer? Don't call me out on that one. And there's a little tool included that lets you adjust the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde tuning of this one. Though they're both not evil, it's wonderful. Little tool. SOFTEARS mesh pouch, which I really love. This lovely case. It's a semi-soft, hard when it counts. And this woven cable that is modular, so single-ended and 4.4 balanced. It's one of the nice ones that you actually have to unscrew and then pull apart. I really like those. It makes them smaller, and they don't pull apart when you don't want them to. There we go. I'm using single-ended right now, and I'll explain a little bit. And I apologize if this video is going to be a little longer. There is a lot to go over, and it didn't help that the fact that as I'm teasing this one on social media, so many people kept asking me for other comparisons, and I totally get that, to put it in some context. But you guys have no idea how long extra that takes for a review. It doesn't matter. I do this for the love, right? You also get two sets of ear tips, the UC soft ear tips, which are gorgeous. I love those tips. And another set which look like a little bit more narrow bore, so they would cut down on maybe a little bit on the high frequencies, and I could see you using this on the high impedance mode. And we'll jump into that. So before we get there, I just want to talk a little bit more about this IM and why it's $319. And it's a very different price point as we're seeing now. We're seeing in the just low 200s, like the AFUL P7, which I'm going to do a comparison against, and the say the EPZ P50 that just came out as well. So now, because it's a lower driver count, and I'll talk about that, and in the 319, what do you get and why? So this one, obviously, they spent a lot of time. You can tell on this release. And there's even a blurb I'm going to post up in a bit here about the engineer's notes on how they got here, which I thought was fascinating, like the backstory, that there actually is a backstory, and it's a worthy read. So, well, I'll put that up here and start yakking to you about this configuration. Now, I think out in the hobby here, some people are creating some drama about SOFTEARS marketing on this driver, but it's very transparent, very clear. If you do your research as you should, when you're doing your review, all this comes epically clear. So there's no controversy whatsoever when they call two dynamic drivers, one active, one passive. And again, very clear, very open and honest about what they're doing here and why they're doing it. So, and it's a very interesting combination of a 10 millimeter titanium dome driver. And a previous video I was talking here about the different drivers, the different cone materials and their sonic properties. And again, I find metal dome drivers are speedier, lighter, faster, but they don't tend to pull down lower. Well, here they've also added a passive driver, which means it doesn't have a motor. There's no power going to it. And it's a 6 millimeter wool organic membrane that goes over top of the output of this driver. And it's used to dampen and control and filter out unwanted harmonics and resonances, and it really works well when we start talking about the tuning. But there's more. The nozzle pressure relief system, they call strip pressure. I like it. It's, yeah. I love some of this marketing, though. 2 modes, pop and classical. I don't really like that wording because you're limiting yourself to like genres. And what if you identify as a rocker, right? Phase consistency. Again, these are things that I know from working as a speaker manufacturer. They're super important. And again, when they throw out these marketing speaks, the average person isn't going to know what that does. Phase coherency is basically making sure that all of the frequencies reach your ears at the same time, so there's not a delay. So you're not and you see why in home speakers now there is an angle to them where the high frequency drivers are closer to you than the mids and the woofers, and that's because high frequencies travel at different speeds than lower frequencies. But in order to reach your ears at the same time, you need to do a little bit, and they do this with the way they route the tubing into the nozzle, and that's how they do it here. So it's nice to see. Going back to talk about that passive radiator system, this has been done and still being done in home speakers and professional audios for decades. Like, this isn't new stuff, but it's nice to see manufacturers like SOFTEARS incorporate some of this in a micro scale, in an IM, to great effect, and it really works well. It worked well in the Dynaquattro that they shouldn't have called Quattro, because there's technically only 3 drivers and a passive radiator. Didn't quite agree with that marketing. But here, they're, again, super transparent on that. So let's talk about that little dial on the top and what that actually does. Now, I'll pull up a graph here, and I'll show you visually how it changes the sound. And again, they have their little blurb here about what that is actually doing and why. And it's kind of unique in the fact that it isn't targeting a specific set of frequencies. It's actually working across the board. So, and it really does change the overall entire frequency and the tonal characteristics of this IM versus another application that, you know, has been out there with tuning switches and stuff like that. This is a bit different. This is unique. And this is what makes the SOFTEARS Volume S something different, and refreshing, right? Before I get there, I'm using not their stock tips. I'm just using these pen-on liquor tips, whatever, drunken tips. Oh, monk, Jesus. Something else I want to point out. I like their nozzles too. It doesn't have a lip on it, but I'm okay. Again, I don't really find having no lip having an issue with ear tips falling off. It works good. They're medium-sized shells, I should state that too, so they should work for a majority of people, hopefully. Now, I'll probably show up a better picture. On this little, you can kind of see it, this little edge here, there's a very large vent. And one of the things with dynamic drivers, and when you want to create bass and you put stuff in a little shell and shoot it out of the nozzle, you get pressure buildup, and you need to do something hopefully with pressure relief. And here they've done a great job. There is a one tube, and it's kind of the one of the teeny little tubes. You can kind of you can't see that. It's not going to focus on that. Doesn't matter. But that actually takes the ear pressure from inside of your ear canal and actually vents it out through the shell. And it's done in a very, very good way. There's no driver pressure. There's no driver flex. It's done exceptionally well. So very good job on that. Fit and fitment, again, I love these shells. They're super comfortable. They're working great for me. And they're super comfy for many hours. Kind of the resin shell on top and kind of that metal looking. And again, little things that I really like that turns my crank. The red on the cable telling me it's right, and no red telling me it's left. That kind of stuff. The cable, when it goes in, is a bit recessed. So this is a recessed 2-pin, but it sits nice and flush in there as well. The cable itself does have volume S written on the splitter. And again, SOFTEARS written on the... These are little things. But again, attention to details to me. Once you've worked out all the big stuff, it's nice to see that you sweated out the details as well. So I pay attention to that stuff because I think it speaks overall volume to the quality of this release. So now... the two settings, and I'm going to refer to these settings mostly from low impedance setting or high impedance setting, and that's how I'm going to describe it. Now, in my journey of this I listened mostly, because if you watched or didn't watch that little blurb at the beginning of mine, which in the future I will shorten, but in this one I do go on to say my preferences, and I like a little bassier, I like a little warmer tunings, and the low impedance switch really works for me. Why? Because it's bassy, it's warm, it has full sweet mids, and the lower mids nicely weighted for male vocals and proper sounding percussions and drums. That's what really some of the standout things that I found on the Volume S. Mids and upper mids are very well behaved, and again, add in a little bit of warmth to it and smoothness for a really easy listen. And I think that's one of the takeaways I want to give you with this set, that it's an easy listening set for many hours, especially if you like that kind of tuning like I do, and if you don't, flick the dial, right? Now, somebody asked me also, and I will do a comparison to SOFTEARS TWILIGHT. I do own a set. I'm proud to own a set. They do have a weird, funky shell that doesn't work for everyone. It's not the most super comfy one, but it has some unique sound signature with this amazing 3D stage and bass texture, and more importantly, the amazing coherency and the tonal accuracy, the correctness of vocals, and the timbre of instruments. It is standout on that set. Reference, absolutely. Now, it does have some of the SOFTEARS Volume S, does have some of the TWILIGHT DNA. I will tell you that. It has a big open stage, and it does a wonderful job of placing vocals and instrumental in their own space, and letting notes finish, and with a nice decay while layering with the next notes. And that's not hard or not easy to do in an IM, and the Volume S does that really well. It makes a very musical and engaging experience, that's for sure. Now, jumping into some music, because I love giving you context via music. Let's go to something that I really enjoyed while listening to this, was Fistful of Steel by Rage Against the Machine. insane stage. Sometimes behind my ears, that doesn't happen very often. Bass is tight and slamming. Great vocals and a sparkly top end. These impressions were done on the new Ibasso DX340. What a beast. That player is incredibly transparent, very neutral sounding, it has a natural sounding, very uncolored, but very, very detailed player. So that was the source that I'm talking about here when I was listening to the Volume S. And as we get through this review, I've also tried to change some synergy. Now, I didn't always use a $1,700 DAP. In fact, a lot of my impressions were done on a SHANLING M1 Plus, right? I'm going to talk about that too. And that has to do with impedance and what that does to the sound. And this one is exceptionally sensitive to output impedance from your players. So something to keep note of. Anyway, moving on. The Riddle, 5 from Fighting. Now, I deliberately downloaded a copy that I had, and I converted it from one of my CDs. Anyway, I made it an MP3. I think I screwed up pretty badly. Anyway, I use this track for transparency reasons, and I also have a better version, but the Volume S has the ability, and this is the takeaway, to pick apart really poorly recorded tracks. Where indeed lesser IMs would just kind of smooth the vocals into the background. The Volume S could dissect the playback and let you know all of its shortcomings. To pick up clarity and resolution, the Volume S replayed this track exactly how it was fed, poorly. And that's a good thing, because it was like, oh, yeah, no, that sounds like shit. Oh, it's supposed to, because it was fed to you sounding like shit. And it didn't make any, it picked it apart and annihilated it. So was happy that it did that and could do that. A certain slant of light, and it flicked over to this track and in high res, and it was, right? The Tea Party. One of my absolute favorite rock bands, unique presentation. I love rock, and I love the Tea Party. It moves me with their style and their vocals. The Volume S has a mixture of sweet warmth and clarity that is simply mesmerizing to listen to. The well-behaved top end means that you can headbang away without any ear fatigue, and while the cymbal strikes in the song still come through nicely. So, yeah, rock approved, absolutely. More rock from my fellow Canadians. Courage from the Tragically Hip. I love the kick drums in the song and the way the SOFTEARS has a rich bass presence that will have you playing the air drums and the foot going at the same time, really all day long. It elicits that kind of emotion out of you, which is a strong... what more can you say that you want something that moves you emotionally when you're listening to it, right? Why Do We Fall by Hans Zimmer. Again, a phenomenally recorded track. And my notes were, wow, so big, so dynamic a stage is amazing. It fills your whole headspace. Depth is just average on this track, and that's kind of what I listened for on this track. But it is very 3D and very engrossing. So now my next part I threw in here as I was going through my journey is what happens when you dial up the impedance dial, right? Because it's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I should have used a better analogy, but that one came to mind. Tonality changes, as does the resistance. So when you dial that dial to the right side, you need a lot more power to get up to volume. Now, I will say that the Volume S is still very easy to drive. On the M1 Plus, so not a super powerful DAP, on single-ended, it more than enough juice, no problem, even with the high impedance mode. Now, why single-ended? I'll talk about that now, because when I was listening to my Onyx XM5, love this player. I know it has a big fat bottom end that fills in nicely, clean mid-range, and very nice sparkly top end. But when you play this on the Volume S, it is like dialing that impedance switch, 6.6 ohms output resistance on 4.4 balanced and 3.3 when you're on single-ended. Now, the M1 Plus is significantly better. Though I did listen to it here, I turned the low impedance down and it was like turning the switch on, so I got less bass in the playback, and it was, you can play with your sources. But so the reason I use this in single-ended, it has a 0.6 of an ohm, below 1 ohm resistance in single-ended, so I knew I wasn't going to muck with the sound. I wasn't changing the sound at all with my source. So that's what I did and why I did it. So now what happens to the sound when you're using that impedance switch? Well, the bass dials down and the upper mids and vocals pick up. Gone is the added warmth in the lower mids, making the entire presentation leaner, drier, and airier for sure. It's a matter of taste, but a fantastic implementation and an innovative and refreshing take to give people choices towards their preferred sound signature, at least in this moment or in your mood. So again, what's making the Volume S a little bit different from its competition is this implementation of this impedance dial, and it works very well. Now, on this little guy, the SHANLING M1 Plus single-ended, Avenue A, and by Red Rider. So on low impedance, it had a wonderfully sweet vocals, excellently weighted acoustical guitar. On high impedance mode, instrumental comes out to play more. It's more neutral and a clean presentation. I think both were enjoyable to listen to, but it was a different presentation. Depends on the dial, right? Low impedance, high impedance. And another track, let's do some drums by Poncho Sanchez. Now, remember, he is a phenomenal jazz artist, and he likes to sell his drums. So on Blue Train, trumpets. And trumpets are a phenomenal instrument to listen to for correct tonality of the instruments. Do they sound correct? As does cymbal crashes, right? So trumpets and on high impedance mode sound fantastic. Drums are there, but now take a back seat to the top end. So if you were to dial back down the impedance, what happens? Well, now drums are back in the mix. Trumpets are still there, but now sounds more balanced and full. So that's what you can expect when you dial that switch, right? And then switching over to one more track, I wanted to listen to, again, bass and EDM, in this case, Friction by the Crystal Method. Slam, impact, fun, and volume levels can be pushed to 11. EDM, low impedance mode, dial it up, enjoy. Rinse and repeat. Now, in this next section, by request, let's do some comparisons. Now, AFUL at full, P7, 5.5 plus 2, right? Single-ended, because that's how I got it as well, which is great, on their stock cable. How did it sound? Well, this one's $239, so $80 less money. You get a basic cable. It's nice. You get this little hard kind of plastic case, so accessories are knocked down quite a bit if that really matters to you. In My Heart by Young San Na, if you're not familiar with her, she is a phenomenal female vocalist and unique. The Volume S has a richer, warmer nature. Again, this is down with low impedance mode, the way I prefer it, with a bigger, more 3D stage. That was the big takeaway between the two sets. The Volume S is, as Michael Jackson would say, one smooth criminal. The P7 is the leaner, less colored version of the Volume S in low impedance mode, and the difference is even more pronounced in high impedance mode. So this is where the Volume S shows its versatility and value by having that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of personas. You get the better cable, you get the better accessories, more premium, and of course you're paying for that $80 as well. But I think the takeaway between these two sets is that you don't just get one set of tuning, you get two, right? So that's what I thought the difference was if you were considering or stepping up from the AFUL P7. Now let's go to the SOFTEARS TWILIGHT $930 single dynamic driver. And I wanted to throw this in there because it adds some context to the Volume S, right? First thing you notice is a much larger bass presence from the subs to the bouncy mid bass when you step up to the Volume S. The Twilight is more going for tonal accuracy. The Volume S is going for the fun factor, again, in low impedance mode, right? Again, changes when you switch to... This is such a hard review because you have these two different sound profiles, right? And so I hope I'm not confusing anybody. So every time I listen to the Twilight, what stands out for me every single time is how tonally correct everything sounds. And then there's this incredible 3D holographic stage. The Volume S has a more forward mid placement. It's not as balanced. It's more colored, more V-shaped, more dynamic, and more fun tuning, right? Yes, that 3D stage is there, but it's not as noticeable on the Volume S as the Twilight. So it's still very well done. So many things really make the Twilight special. Volume S takes a lot of that DNA, nice, it's called trickle down, right? And boost up the fun factor, I think, especially in the bass and the sparkly top end. So a mini brother on a low impedance mode maybe, and closer yet on high impedance mode. That's my take away for the comparison for the two. Not really a fair comparison, but I just wanted to say that it did in fact have that DNA in there. So now, switching over to the DX340 as my music player, sending this out coaxially to my Geshelli Labs J3 Pro. And that thing is loaded with Sparkos SS2590 op amps, the best that they make. Then out to my topping A90D. That is my reference stack. Phenomenal. It has a little bit of warmth to the sound, but the flagship AKM DAC chip in there, in combination with the Sparkos, adds a little bit of warmth and some incredible resolution and details. It's a very, very fantastic desktop stack. That's how that sounds. Now, that was the source. And now I'm doing The Audio Oracle OGs. I think you can still buy these, and for very good reason. They have made replacements of these, but you're not going to replace these. These have special magic. There's a good mojo going on with them. All the Road Running by Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler, right? So on the Volume S, Vocals are so fluid and effortless. Strong bass lines fill in the bottom end, and a very nice balance of warm sound, very nice thickness with this track, and you can just chill to the music. Switching over to the oracles, with less energy in the upper mids, the oracle sounds darker. Vocal clarity falls behind the soft ears, and female vocals more so than male vocals. The Volume S has the punchier bass without that 60 hertz to say 300 hertz. Here's a graph of the two together. Scoop that this one does is kind of that, kind of the sub bass shelf, lower bass scoop that they do to try to clean up the mids, right? So this also makes the OG sound less thick in the lower mids. It does that, and some would hear this as a cleaner mid-range. Personally, I like the warmer bottom end with more mid bass and more energy up top than this. If I had a wish list to change anything about the Oracle tuning for a more, if I wanted a more engaging listen, the Volume S would have checked all the boxes. That being said, there is still much magic in the OG Oracle. It is a very smooth, balanced chill set. Won't sell that one. Glad I own it. Okay, last comparison here. Ooh, this was a tough one. This is the SHANLING ME600. Now, you may not be familiar with this very cool IAM. It also has two dynamic drivers. These are 6mm biodynamic drivers working in tandem. Now, that fake isobar shit. And 3 balanced armatures. I praise this for its tonal characters, its accuracy, and its stage. Gallows Pole by Led Zeppelin. On the volume, nice big open spacious stage, good spacing between instruments, and the depth to vocals and instrument separation were standout. Love this playback. Great full-bodied vocals, great guitar, and a very fun and engaging playback. And that banjo. Bass pulls down lower on the Volume S. Graph isn't showing it. The Volume S on low impedance mode is the better chill set for longer sessions, and that's its special mojo. ME600. A bigger, more spacious sound, yet even over the fabulous staging of the Volume S. More detail, more resolution versus the Volume S, with better clarity and, I think, tonal accuracy. It's like a more intense Volume S. I think if you took a combination of the two tunings of the Volume S and amalgamated them, you would combine into the ME600 sound. The ME600's bass has better punch, but I think the Volume S still pulled down lower and had very good texture in the bass too. And that's where the Volume S has the ME600, is the ability, again now, to dial in the two different and unique sound signatures, where if you're buying just the ME600, you only get the one. So either you like it or you don't, and you can't really switch. So if I think if tonal accuracy and correct timbre is something you prioritize, and if you're a complete stage 3D hound, the ME600 might be a solid choice for you as well. But again, it only has one tuning, where the Volume S has two. So really torn between the two. That the SHANLING was $329, and I see it now down for $276. So sucks to be you. So to conclude this long-winded review, and thank you for bearing with me and watching this video. Wow, I'll just say that the SOFTEARS Volume S is a wonderful IAM. Great presentation, case, cable, and a unique implementation to adjust the impedance and overall sound tuning. The Volume S definitely has the smooth nature of the Twilight DNA in its own spin. Beautiful, classy, timeless. That's the way I would describe the shell, with a modern twist. This IM is very engaging for me to listen to for hours with a well-behaved persona, or a more energetic offering if you so choose to dial up that dial. Regardless of what you or how you swing, the impedance dial will reward you with an IM that I think you can and want to pick up for a very long time in your arsenal. So that was my thoughts on the Volume S. Thank you to HiFiGo and SOFTEARS for providing the unit to the Tone Deaf Monk. I'm out for now. And I'll see you next time.